If you've had ACL surgery and trying to come back to the jiu-jitsu mats, check out this video because I'm gonna give you some awesome tips on how to get you back to training safely and reducing your risk of injury. So I got a question from Kim on Instagram, and Kim asks, do you have any tips on coming back to BJJ after an ACL repair, a year off the mats? So Kim, thank you for the question. So let's get into it. So knee injuries are common in jiu-jitsu. You know, ACL injuries are pretty severe, pretty serious injuries to come back from. A lot of people do come back, but you know, you have to be kind of mindful in your recovery on getting back to training on the mat. So I'm gonna give you some useful tips to look at, to think about, to work on, some guidelines and goals that could be helpful in your path to recovery, getting back on the mat safely, and reducing your risk of getting injured. I'll start this off by saying that having a good rehab program, someone guiding your rehab that's knowledgeable, at least to some capacity in jiu-jitsu, what the demands of jiu-jitsu are and what your body's gonna have to go through to be on the mats and stay on the mats is very, very important. So the value of having a proper and a really good rehab program and someone guiding that rehab cannot be undersold or undervalued. That's extremely important. That's really, really key to getting back on the mats safely. Now let's talk about a few guidelines that you should have when you're getting back to jiu-jitsu, getting back to training and moving on the mats. Number one is having full range of motion. So your knee should be able to fully bend and fully straighten. You should have full mobility in that knee. That's a prerequisite that should be there. If that's not there, you could be more vulnerable to injury. Second thing is, you know, your pain levels need to be pretty well managed. So 0 is no pain, 10 is the worst pain you can think of. That's called the visual analog scale. I would say that your pain should be no worse than 3 to 4 out of 10 after training or moving or doing exercises, things like that. So if your pain goes above that, you got to get that pain under control and see kind of what the cause of pain is, if there's some modifications you need to make. Number 3, having good strength in that knee, particularly looking at the quad muscle. So your quadriceps muscle, the muscle in the front of your thigh, needs to be at least 90% as strong on your injured or your surgical leg as your other leg. So that's really, really valuable. It's really important to have. The research shows that if you are lacking strength, you're gonna be more susceptible, more vulnerable to injury. And the other thing, number 4, and this kind of has a little bit of wiggle room, but honestly, the research has shown that if 1 year out and longer, your risk of re-injury decreases or diminishes. So if you come back before a year, you're more susceptible to injury or re-injuring that knee. A year or later, that's where kind of that you really are banking on having a little bit more success and a little less risk of re-injuring that ACL. So as you go a little longer out, the better your chances of not re-injuring that ACL. Now here's the thing that where we talk about, you know, having a good rehab professional, good rehab program comes into play. Return to sport testing. Now, there's some things you can do on your own, but the best way, you know, have somebody that's prepping you for return to jiu-jitsu, return to sport, is there's some tests they can do. They can be a Y balance test where you stand on one leg and reach out in different planes, single leg hop tests where you jump for distance. Compare those to each other, the right leg, left leg, and you make sure that there's less than 10% variability in that as well. So those are really important return to sport tests in the rehab sense. Again, jiu-jitsu wise, it's a whole different component as well, but before you get back on the mats to get back to training, you have to have those hop tests done or the Y balance test, some other testing that can really prepare you and just see if there's areas you're lacking in, discover some deficits, and hopefully address those before you get back to training. Now, when we're looking at return to jiu-jitsu, it's important that either, you know, you have someone guiding that return to sport, you're listening to your body, and you're kind of taking it slow as you feel comfortable. And that's got to be a graded approach. It's got to be a way where you kind of first start doing some jiu-jitsu specific solo movements, solo drills. It could be bridging, it could be technical stand-up, it could be, you know, solo, like kind of like shadow wrestling, I guess, just working on movements and side to side and things like that, adding those components in where you're going to be specific to jiu-jitsu. Now, you may do some of that in rehab, but you know, you may not do some jiu-jitsu specific movements, exactly jiu-jitsu movements. That's okay. It kind of depends on your rehab professional's knowledge base, and kind of, you also don't want to overwork those movement patterns. You want to kind of build them in slowly. So when you are getting back on the mats, I discussed that graded approach. That means you're just going to do solo drills by yourself. Then you can do partner drilling. And it might just be certain positions where you feel safe, probably avoiding some leg entanglements for right now initially, but that will be stuff that you'll incorporate, leg attacks and leg locks we'll incorporate down the line. Now, so you start with your partner drilling, then once you feel comfortable with partner drilling, you can actually do some low intensity sparring in position. So positional sparring, start with low intensity, minimal resistance, and then increase the resistance from there. The reason why I like positional work is, number one, you're decreasing the risk of scrambles, and scrambles are kind of where, you're moving around in an uncontrolled way sometimes, and so that's where you can be vulnerable. So working on a controlled drilling environment is really, really valuable, really important. We're trying to kind of take away a lot of the external factors here. So controlled drilling or controlled sparring, then you can do positional sparring 100%, and then eventually you can go to full-on sparring rolling. So it's got to be a great approach. You have to listen to your body, see how you feel, communicate with your training partners, let them know what you're going through, what you're feeling, let your coaches know what's up. You have to listen to your body, be comfortable. And then again, graded approach is getting into the techniques and the positions, but also how much you train. Start to increase gradually the intensity, increase how many times a week you train. You don't just want to hop in 100%. All the values in rehab have been perfect, so I'm good to go. There's still going to be that carryover you need. There's going to be some time of adjustment, of letting your body, get up to speed, with your mind and kind of what you want to do. You want to be in sync there. So there's some things that requires some nuance. Having someone that can guide you is very important. Like if you have an upper belt or a physical therapist that does jiu-jitsu, that's knowledgeable, that could be really helpful to your return on the mats as well. Just because they can kind of specifically guide you on what to do and what not to do and kind of give you some more feedback in that capacity. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment down below. Good luck on your rehab, Kim, and I'll talk to you guys next time.